Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers recording in public, reasonable suspicion, and obstruction, and is brought to us by Honor Your Oath Civil Rights Investigations channel. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On November 27, 2020, longtime First Amendment auditor Jeff Gray was filming ambulances and various other first responder vehicles running a stop sign near the Southeast Health Medical Center in Dothan, Alabama. After recording several vehicles, Mr. Gray was approached by the medical center's security, who told him that he was not allowed to film the building. Mr. Gray respectfully disagreed, and the security guard returned to his post and called the police. A few minutes later, Officer K. Fisher of the Dothan Police Department arrived on the scene and confronted Mr. Gray.
How you doing?
Can you come over here in front of my car so my camera can watch you, please?
Yes, sir. Am I being detained?
You are. For the duration of this investigation. Can you step over here in front of my
For
camera,
what reason?
please? Sir, I'm investigating a suspicious person.
Okay.
Don't play games with me, okay? I know what you're
I'm
doing.
engaged in lawful activity.
I know what you're doing. You're First Amendment frauditor. I get it.
That's
Just
constitutionally
step over
protected
here, okay?
activity. Why am I
Step
being
over.
detained?
Because you're creating a disturbance. All right, step over here.
This is constitutionally protected activity.
Sir.
You cannot make it a crime.
Sir, you are creating a disturbance.
What is your name and badge number?
I'm investigating the disturbance.
What's your name and badge number?
Officer Fisher, 1146.
Okay, my name is
Police
Jeff.
Department, K9.
I'm with Pinac News
Okay,
Services.
Listen.
I got my ID in my
Stop.
pocket if you want to see
You
it.
don't dictate what happens here. I need to talk to you.
No, the Constitution.
Let me talk to you, okay?
The law and the Constitution
Sir.
dictates what happens. I'm
Stop.
on a public sidewalk.
Stop. I
Engaged
know
in
your
Constitution.
game. It's okay.
Then why are you
don't-
even here?
I don't want to play with this game with you, okay?
If you know my game,
you
then you know I'm...
intentionally creating a disturbance
No, I'm
in
not.
order to create a lawsuit. That's what you want to do.
I
I get
am-
that.
I
I
am-
acknowledge that that is your profession. I understand that is how you make your money.
What law am I
I'm here
breaking?
doing my job.
What law am I
okay?
violating?
You're creating a disturbance and you're bothering folks over here.
What
I'm
law
here
am
to
I violating?
investigate why. So,
Okay.
what I'm going to do is do a report on this incident to rule you out as potential stalker for one of the employees. If any of these employees get their vehicles damaged or anything, I need to know where to look.
I am
Because it's
engaged.
not normal for somebody to be filming people exiting a hospital.
In the 2000 case of Smith versus City of Cumming, the 11th Circuit Court, which presides over Alabama, affirmed the First Amendment right to record both police officers and any other matters that may be of public interest. The court cited the 1995 Ninth Circuit case of Fordyce versus City of Seattle to recognize that the First Amendment protects a citizen's right to film matters of public interest. The court went on to cite the 1983 11th Circuit case of United States versus Hastings to clarify that, quote, the press generally has no right to information superior to that of the general public. The 11th Circuit Court has thoroughly established that recording matters of public interest is protected under the First Amendment, and has even gone as far as reversing an officer's claim for qualified immunity after he arrested a demonstrator who was filming undercover officers in the 1995 case of Williamson versus Mills. Mr. Gray was filming public servants disobeying traffic laws from a public sidewalk, and the legal protections associated with that conduct are well established in Alabama. When Officer Fisher arrived on the scene, he told Mr. Gray that he knew exactly what he was doing, and even went as far as calling Mr. Gray a First Amendment frauditor, before eventually backtracking and saying that he wasn't sure if Mr. Gray was doing something illegal. Officer Fisher made no effort to investigate the situation and determine whether or not a crime was committed. Instead, he focused on the information needed to file the incident report that is required by his department, and completely disregarded his investigative duties as a member of law enforcement. Mr. Gray was never offered an opportunity to explain what he was filming or why he was filming it, and Officer Fisher made no effort to determine whether his actions were legal.
For all I know, listen, let me talk. I'm talking, not you.
Go ahead.
For all I know, you are stalking somebody at the hospital.
Nope.
Either an employee. I don't know that.
Nope.
I don't know you. I'm
Don't
not
know
God.
that. So you don't have
I'm
any
not
reasonable
God,
grounds for...
But I have to investigate.
I'm engaged
And
in a
I'm gonna be doing
lawful,
report on
constitutionally
it.
protected activity, and
telling
I'm
you
going to be on my
doing a
way.
report.
I'm leaving right
I
now.
need your driver's license.
I'm leaving right now.
No, I'm doing a report because I don't know what you are or what you're doing.
If I don't give you my
For all
driver's
I-
license,
no.
what's going to happen?
Okay, listen, sir.
I asked you
I've
a simple question.
explained to you
And I've told you
I
that...
am investigating
I've told
a
you,
suspicious
listen,
person
listen.
who is causing a disturbance at a
The ambulance is
private
constantly
hospital.
running the stop sign.
Private hospital.
The ambulance is running the stop
For all
sign.
I know, you
I'm
could be
filming
stalking. I don't know you. Okay, I don't know if that's the truth.
Yeah,
you
it's
might
fine.
be stalking or harassing an employee or a patron at the hospital.
I'm not.
So
My
I'm
name
going to be doing a
Officer,
report.
my name is
So
Jeff.
that if something
I work
comes
with
up,
Pinac News
I
Services.
can go ahead and rule you
and
out.
I'm on
or
your
investigate you
Constitution.
further. Provide me with your driver's license.
I don't
please,
have my
for this
driver's
report.
license on me.
Okay.
My name is Jeff.
I've asked you several times to step in front of my
All right,
car
I'll
so
step
that you're
in front
in
of
the
your
camera.
car. Okay.
Stand right there.
All right.
Now, if you don't have
I'm
a
not on
driver's
the
license,
sidewalk now.
then I don't care. I'm not here to harass you about being on the sidewalk. I want this video camera behind you to watch you.
Okay.
Okay? I want it to be catching all of this interaction. You have yours. That's great. That's cool. I look forward to seeing myself on YouTube.
I've got to get back to work.
All right? No. I got to do my job. You have caused me to come here. That's what you've done. So now I'm here performing my duties,
Can I
and you're
explain
not
to you
going to
what I was
interfere
doing?
with my duties.
Can I explain to you what I
You're
was
going to
doing?
be providing me with your social security number, your driver's license number, if you know it, your date of birth, your address, and your full name.
While it is important to bear in mind that Officer Fisher may be working with inaccurate information, it is highly unlikely that a court would find that the officer had legitimately acquired reasonable suspicion to identify Mr. Gray. However, it is equally as likely that a court would find that Officer Fisher acted in good faith based on the information he was provided by the caller. Even in a scenario where Officer Fisher did have reasonable suspicion to identify Mr. Gray, the state of Alabama has drafted laws that specifically outline what information Mr. Gray would be required to provide to the officer. Section 15-5-30 of the Code of Alabama states that members of law enforcement may stop any person abroad in a public place whom he reasonably suspects is committing, has committed, or is about to commit a felony or other public offense, and may demand of him his name, address, and an explanation of his actions. This code is based on the doctrine set forth in the Terry v. Ohio case, and most states have similar statutes. The exact language and scope of these codes vary from state to state, and each state has different identification requirements for detained suspects. For example, Arizona's failure to identify statute only requires that suspects provide their true full name. And in states like Texas, suspects are only required to provide their name, address, and date of birth if they have been arrested. The Alabama Code only requires detained citizens to provide their name, address, and an explanation of their actions. And Mr. Gray is under no legal obligation to provide any information beyond that, regardless of the departmental policies that Officer Fisher is attempting to adhere to.
Am I free to go?
No, you are not.
And why am I being
explained
detained?
to you several times
Why am
that
I being
I'm here
detained?
investigating
Okay.
a suspicious person.
Am I going to be arrested if I don't provide you that
You are
information?
starting to interfere with my investigation. I've explained to you I have to do a report on this, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So don't make this a crime. Allow this to be what it is, where I do a report on the incident, and that's it. Okay, but if you want to interfere with me doing
don't want to
that, which is
interfere with
my
you.
job,
I want you to do. I want
which
you.
is
Your
my
job is
if
to
you interfere
respect
with
my
that,
rights and protect
it's
my
obstructing
rights.
governmental operations. Do you have any questions about that?
No, I do not.
Okay, good. I'm going to be removing my notepad. I'm going to request that information from
And
you.
if
Are
I
you going
don't,
to provide it?
I'm not
If you don't
refusing.
provide it, then I have already explained to you what I'm here, what I'm doing, what I'm investigating, and the fact that I'm going to be doing a report, which is part of my job. And if you don't provide the information that I'm asking for that report, because you have caused this situation and me to be brought here, yes, you will be arrested for obstructing
My name is
governmental
Jeffrey.
operations.
Under duress.
Stand by.
Okay.
I need to get my notepad.
Officer Fisher informs Mr. Gray that if he does not provide the requested information, then he will be arrested for obstructing governmental operations. And Mr. Gray reluctantly complies. Alabama Code 13A-10-2 states that a person commits the crime of obstructing governmental operations if, by means of intimidation, physical force, or interference, or by any other independently unlawful act, he intentionally obstructs, impairs, or hinders the administration of law or other governmental function, or intentionally prevents a public servant from performing a governmental function. It is entirely possible for Mr. Gray to be prosecuted for obstructing, even if the stop is found to be invalid. I have covered the topic of resisting unlawful arrests in a previous episode, which I will link to in the info card above. But, as mentioned in many episodes of ATA, it is always best to comply with an officer's orders, even if you believe them to be unlawful. And Mr. Gray's decision to comply with Officer Fisher's demands will likely serve him well in the courtroom if he decided to challenge the legitimacy of this stop. It should be noted that Mr. Gray provided context for his decision to surrender his identifying information in the description section of the original video. Mr. Gray knew that getting arrested would likely result in a weekend in jail, because this interaction took place on the Friday after Thanksgiving, and the courts were closed until Monday. He also said that he was on his lunch break at work when he decided to start filming, and that getting arrested would likely have resulted in him losing his job that he has had for over 25 years. After Mr. Gray decides to tell Officer Fisher his name, date of birth, and address, the officer continues to press Mr. Gray for the additional information he requested.
When am I free to
What's
go?
your phone number?
I have to give you my phone number, man.
Hey, look, I'm doing a report. It's one of my little things to get this report approved that it has your phone number. You don't want to provide me your phone number? That's fine. What's your
Yeah.
social?
I'd rather not give you my social either.
Well, I have to positively identify you. So what's your social? You don't have a driver's license, or I would use that.
I don't have my driver's license.
Okay, then that's what I would normally use, but since you don't have that, I have to use another
There's
means.
all these people standing around. I'm
That's
about to
fine.
give you
Let's
my.
step over here and
Okay.
go ahead and give it to me quietly, so that way nobody hears. Do you want to put your phone on mute so YouTube doesn't hear?
No, I'll just edit that out.
Oh, okay.
I got to get back to work, man. I'm only on my lunch break, so the longer this takes, the worse it is on you.
The worse it is on me. I'm gonna run here. Greg,
Yes.
I'm still waiting on a return of your information. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and explain to you. Well, actually, first I need to know, were you on the sidewalk the entire time?
Yes, sir. Sidewalk.
Okay. So I'm gonna advise you, all right? The hospital owns that side of the road and this parking lot, and they don't want you on the property.
Okay.
So obviously, you know as well as I do that sidewalks and public roadways are obviously sidewalks and public roadways where you're allowed to be.
Okay, there's a sidewalk that goes down that road. Is that okay?
You're completely good on the public roadways and the sidewalks. Okay. Now, obviously, you understand that your actions are creating a disturbance with the employees and the parishioners of the hospital. Whatever you're doing here, regardless, okay, legal reason, I don't know. I'm just doing a report on the incident because of the disturbance that's going on. Okay, you do you. As long as you stay on the public property and you don't end up bothering anybody, I'm never going to see you again. I hope to God.
I'm free to go.
I'm waiting on your information return. As soon as that information comes back, you're good to go.
So I'm still being detained.
Stand by. Yes, you are. Okay? Until I know that you're not a wanted murderer.
I do have to get back to work. I do have to get back to work.
Well, you have to wait on the computer at this point. All right? I didn't create the situation. I'm just here to deal with it. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay. Again, my name is Officer Fisher, ID number 1146 with Oakland Police Department's K9.
Okay, thank you.
After confirming Mr. Gray's identity, Officer Fisher trespassed him from the medical center's property and allowed him to leave the scene without further incident. It is unclear whether Mr. Gray has filed any complaints against the officers involved or intends to take legal action, and I highly suggest following Mr. Gray's channel for updates on this encounter. Mr. Gray is also one of the more seasoned auditors and has been conducting First Amendment audits on YouTube for nearly a decade. You can find a link to his channel in the description below. Overall, Officer Fisher gets an F for failing to conduct a legitimate investigation, maintaining a hostile and condescending demeanor throughout the encounter, and for threatening to arrest Mr. Gray for failing to surrender information he was not legally obligated to provide. Officer Fisher was so focused on ensuring that departmental protocols were fulfilled that he was willing to compromise Mr. Gray's constitutional rights in order to write an incident report. The officer never offered Mr. Gray an opportunity to explain his actions, and never asked what Mr. Gray was filming or where he was filming from. It seems as though the legality of Mr. Gray's actions was not a prevalent factor in Officer Fisher's quote-unquote investigation, and the officer's conduct was primarily driven by the department's requirement to draft an incident report. Officer Fisher also approached the encounter with a completely unprofessional attitude. And while officers are entitled to their own opinions just as any other American, those opinions should not dictate the way that officers carry out their duties. It is clear that Officer Fisher held some animosity toward Mr. Gray because he was an auditor, and the officer's decision to mock Mr. Gray was unnecessary and inflammatory. Officer Fisher demonstrated a complete disregard for the investigative process and de-escalation, and turned what could have been a positive and educational interaction with members of the public into a detainment and threat of arrest. Mr. Gray gets an A+ for maintaining a calm and collected demeanor throughout the interaction, making a legitimate effort to dispel the officer's suspicions, and retaining a sensible balance between complying with the officer's demands and preserving his constitutional rights. As mentioned before, Mr. Gray's decision to comply with the officer's demands will likely serve him well in the courtroom, and allowed Mr. Gray to challenge the legitimacy of the stop without having to be taken to jail over the weekend. It is not necessary to resist officers in order to build a case against them. Officer Fisher's demand to provide a date of birth and social security number was unlawful, and if Mr. Gray had refused to comply with the officer's orders and been arrested, it would not have changed anything about the legality of the officer's conduct. Whether or not Mr. Gray had complied with Officer Fisher's orders, he would still have a case against the officer because the orders themselves were unlawful. A refusal to comply in this interaction would have resulted in nothing more than unnecessary jail time and an obstruction charge that could potentially be prosecuted, regardless of whether the stop was found to be invalid. I commend Mr. Gray for remaining calm and compliant throughout the encounter, and I look forward to seeing whether Mr. Gray decides to pursue legal action. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more police interaction content.